Funding for Stress-Free Cooking is brought to you by Cutco. Cutco has been making high-quality products in Olean, New York since 1949. Cutco's straight-edge blades are durable, flexible, and hold a razor-sharp edge. And by Melissa's. Established in 1984, Melissa's World Variety Produce is currently the largest distributor of specialty produce in the United States. You could depend on Melissa's for delivering great quality products in fruits and vegetables.
Hi, I'm Barbara Seelig-Brown. Welcome to Stress-Free Cooking. What I want you to do is come home from work, put on your bunny slippers, pour a glass of wine, and cook with me. Hi, I'm Barbara Seelig-Brown. Welcome to Stress-Free Cooking. Today we're going to have a little red wine when we put on our bunny slippers and cook a great meal because we're cooking meatballs. So I'm going to make for you my mother's famous meatballs, a little marinara sauce, and then we're going to explore some other kind of meatballs. So salute! So the first thing I have to do today is get some marinara started. So let me turn on my saucepan. Let's grab a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. So we're going to put this into the bottom of the saucepan, just enough to cover the bottom of the pan. And maybe 1 to 2 tablespoons, depending on the size of your pan. And I have some garlic that I chopped up for another recipe, so I'm just going to use some of my finely minced garlic in here. And I'm going to cook this until it starts to smell fragrant. I don't want my garlic to get too dark because the dark or burned garlic will make the oil taste bitter. So removing the garlic, even if it got burnt, would not help us. But what you need to do then is you need to start all over. Fresh oil, fresh garlic. So you want to keep your eye on this. And then all I'm going to add to this is some crushed tomatoes, salt, pepper, and a little bit of our fresh basil. It's a great idea to buy these basil plants that you can keep going on your kitchen counter. Okay, my oil is starting to sizzle a little. My garlic is a little bit fragrant. So now I want to go ahead and add my tomatoes, and I need to turn the heat down so I don't splash. Okay, and this is just a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. You could use any tomatoes that you like. San Marzanos are extra flavorful. They're a little bit more costly, but they are extra flavorful. So we're going to let this simmer. And we're going to add some salt and pepper. Okay, a couple pinches of salt. A pinch is about 1/8 of a teaspoon. A few grindings of fresh black pepper. And I'm going to reach over and grab some of that basil and just chop it very quickly and throw that in there. So this is just a really quick marinara. In the time it takes me to prepare my meatballs, this will be flavorful. Then I'll put my meatballs right in the sauce, cook it a little bit longer, and the meatballs will flavor the sauce as well. So throw your basil in there. Remember, you don't chop your basil until it's time to use it because basil blackens once it's been cut. The sharper your knife, the less it will blacken. You can cut your basil with a scissor if you like, or tearing it is actually the best way to do it because you damage it the least. Okay, we're going to let this cook, and we'll go on to mixing up our meatballs. So you need a nice big bowl. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some bread. So I have a pound of meat here, and this is about maybe 3/4 of a cup of unseasoned bread cubes. This would be the same stuff you could use for either Thanksgiving turkey. And what I like to do is I like to add a little red wine to this and soften my bread with red wine. If you don't want to use the wine, you could use stock, beef stock, whatever you like. So we have our wine. Let's put some of this garlic in here. Just a little bit, just a little touch, not a whole lot. I have some Parmesan cheese, and I have some fresh parsley. Okay, that's enough. Okay, 1 egg. 1 egg per pound of ground meat. Crack it on a flat surface so the shell doesn't get pushed into the egg. Okay. And then I have some onion here. So I'm just gonna put this out. It was chopped from another recipe I did earlier today, but I want it a little smaller, so I'm just gonna chop it up a little bit more. You can always chop things like onions and parsley early in the day if you're doing a lot of cooking, and just keep using them throughout the day for every recipe. It's not necessary to chop it every time you need it. Okay, we're gonna mix this up. Your hands are your best kitchen tools. A little salt and pepper. And I think I need just a touch more wine in here, just to make these bread cubes a little softer. And you'd let this sit for a couple of minutes to make sure that bread gets nice and soft. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is add my meat now that I have everything else mixed together. So you want a really good quality certified Angus beef. You do want just a tiny little bit of fat in here for some moisture, but you can use whatever fat content you like. You want it loose, but not too loose. These meatballs I'm gonna pop into my oven. You can fry them, which gives them a nice crust on the outside. But today, I'm just gonna put these in my oven and roast these, bake them for about 10 minutes or so at a really high temperature, 400 or 425. This is also a great place for convection oven, because convection ovens have that nice high heat that keeps circulating because of the fan. So I can form these with my hands. I could use my ice cream scoop as well. Okay. I tend to like to make them a little smaller so that a person could eat 2 or 3 as opposed to one giant meatball that maybe they really think is a little bit too much on their plate. And of course here we tend to serve meatballs and marinara sauce with pasta like spaghetti, but in Italy that would never happen because the pasta course and the meat course are always kept separate. But this is definitely an Italian-American meal. So let me finish rolling these, pop these into the oven. I'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about doing meatballs with turkey and sun-dried tomatoes. One of my other favorite dishes to make is a meatball that I make with ground turkey breast. So when you're shopping, you can find ground turkey breast, which is what we have here in the bowl. It's much whiter than the ground turkey, which is about 7% fat. This is about 1% fat. What's labeled as ground turkey, which is a combination of white and dark meat, breast meat and dark meat, is about 7% fat. So what I want to do is chop a few things and get all my ingredients ready. So I have a shallot here. I'm just going to chop my shallot. So a few horizontal cuts like so, and then a few vertical cuts. Okay. And then all of this is going to go into my mixing bowl, because just as I did with the beef meatballs, I want to mix all of the ingredients before I add the meat. That way I know it's evenly mixed. So then just give yourself a nice fine dice, and that actually looks like enough. So this is about 2 tablespoons of finely minced shallot. And a shallot is a sort of a cross between onion and garlic. It's a little milder than both. If you don't have a shallot, you can use a little onion or a little garlic. I also have a couple of cloves of garlic, so I'm going to crush the clove of garlic with my chef's knife and remove the skin. And just chop this finely. Okay. And then if I want this really fine, one way I can do that is to take some salt, and a pinch of salt on top of that garlic will turn this into a nice fine paste, so that I don't have too large of a chunk of garlic in my turkey meatball. Okay? So I have my garlic paste, 1 little piece of skin in there. So garlic paste into the bowl. The next thing I'm going to do is add some of those bread cubes, not too many, and some wine. So a little red wine. You can use white or red wine in here, but what I like about using the red is it gives the meatball a nice color. So a little red wine. And then what I have is some Italian seasoning, rosemary, basil, and oregano. And you take the seasoning and you rub it between your fingers. It'll freshen up the herbs, and the oils from your fingers and the heat from your fingers sort of bring the oils out in those herbs. So about a half a teaspoon of that. Grated Parmigiano Reggiano. and some fresh parsley because it does give a nice flavor to everything. And then what I want to add are some pinoli nuts. And I want my pinoli nuts chopped. These were toasted. You just put them in a dry skillet and shake them around until they're nice golden brown. Put them in a Ziploc bag. And I'm going to close the bag, leave a little air space, and then take flat meat pounder or a saute pan, a big spoon, anything you have that's nice and heavy, and just crush those nuts. And this is a lot easier than getting out your food processor or your mini chopper. So take a look, and I think they could use just a little bit more. Okay, and that should be fine. Okay, so put about a 1/4 cup of nuts into the bowl. Save these for something else, use them in a salad. Okay, so we're gonna grab our egg, crack it on a flat surface. The egg goes into the bowl. And then I have some sun-dried tomatoes here. And these are sun-dried tomatoes that were not packed in oil. So I am going to give these a little chop. And this is, again, maybe about a 1/4 cup. And we have about 1 pound of ground turkey. Depending on where you buy it, it might come in a 1.25 pound package. That would be fine too. Okay. So chop your sun-dried tomatoes. These are nice and soft. If they're not soft, what you want to do is boil some water and then drop these into boiling water and let them sit for about 3 or 4 minutes, and it will soften them right up and it'll make them easier for you to chop. Okay, so into the bowl we go. And then we're going to mix this all together. The bread cubes should be nice and soft because of the wine. If you don't want to use the wine, just like with the other meatball recipe, you could use stock. So chicken stock would be what I would use here instead of wine. Some people use milk. I'm not a fan of using milk in my meatballs. I like stock or wine. Okay, so that's a nice mixture. And the purpose of doing it this way is that I get everything so much more evenly mixed than if I added this to the meat. Before I get the rest of this meatball mixture together, I need to go check on those beef meatballs. Well, these look perfect. So these baked at 425 convection for about 12 minutes. So I'm just gonna set these aside, and when I'm done with my turkey meatballs, I'll be turning them into my marinara sauce and also making a mushroom sauce for some of them. So now that I have my bread cubes and herbs and seasonings and nuts and sun-dried tomatoes mixed together, I'm gonna add my ground turkey and mix this again. And then I'll shape these into meatballs and roast them in the oven just like I did with the beef meatballs. And you can tell the turkey is taking on a little bit darker color because of all the really colorful ingredients that are in here. And if you don't have fresh parsley and you need to use dry, just keep in mind that the ratio is 1 to 3. So it's 1 part dry equals 3 parts fresh. So when you're reading a recipe, you can always convert. Alrighty, so let's turn this into some meatballs. Now, something else that I love to do with this mixture is I love to turn this into mini meatloaves. So I'm going to turn this into like 1 portion for a person. So about 4 ounces. So it's going to bake like a regular meatloaf. And then I can just serve this with a salad, or I could serve it with a couple of vegetables. So it's a really quick, healthy, low fat, no saturated fat in this. And you can also make these little mini meatloaves and you could freeze them. And then you just take out as many as you need. So when I freeze things like this, I like to freeze them individually, meatballs, meatloaves. Once they're frozen, you can take them out of the freezer and you can put them in Ziploc bags. So you could label this, individual turkey meatloaves, and when you have everyone home for dinner, maybe you need 4 or 5. When you have just one person who's gonna be home for dinner, then maybe you just take 1 out. So it's a good way to have portion control, but aside from portion control, it's also something really great to do ahead. Make extra, do ahead, and then you just pull it out of the freezer when you need a quick meal. All right, we're gonna pop these into the oven, again, 425 convection, about 15 or 20 minutes. One thing I want to mention about the turkey meatballs, or anything that you're cooking in an oven, is that I referred to the convection oven. If you don't have a convection oven, it's fine. It really won't make any difference, except it will just take a little bit longer. So you can cook anything in convection or traditional roast. It just takes a little bit longer in traditional roast. So while we're cooking those turkey meatballs, let's talk a little bit about some sauces for the beef meatballs. So we have the marinara sauce that we've been cooking for a while and we made earlier. But something else that's nice to serve is a mushroom sauce. So we're gonna make a quick little mushroom sauce here. A little extra virgin olive oil or butter if that's your preference. And I'm gonna add some shallots and some minced garlic that I minced up earlier. So about 2 tablespoons of shallots, 1 clove of garlic, finely minced, into the oil. Let them cook for a few minutes, and once it becomes fragrant from the garlic, then we're gonna start to add the rest of our ingredients. The next thing will be some sliced mushrooms, and I'm using cremini mushrooms. Cremini mushrooms are baby portobellos. And they're just portobello mushrooms that are nice and brown, and they haven't been let to mature and get as big as we think of a portobello mushroom. So give this a second. Don't forget, when you're cooking, you want to use your sense of smell, your sense of hearing. It all makes a big difference in what you're perceiving your dish to be like. My shallot and my garlic is cooking nicely, so I'm going to add my mushrooms. Nice sliced mushrooms. Don't forget, you can use an egg slicer to slice your mushrooms. Okay? So I'm going to cook these down for a bit. Mushrooms have a high water content, so once they start to cook, you're going to see them change a lot. And I have some Worcestershire sauce here that I'm going to be adding. Some fresh parsley. We'll be adding beef stock, and we'll be adding some red wine. And this recipe, I think I mentioned in an earlier show, is very, very versatile. You can use any kind of stock or wine you want, and this recipe will work very well with any roasted or grilled meat or fish. So let's cook those down just a bit. I'm using what's a very fine flour. It's called a granulated flour or a searing flour, and it's a lot lighter than an all-purpose flour. So it won't absorb a lot of fat when you're using it, but also it gives you a very smooth sauce. So let's add the flour, sprinkle it right over the mushrooms, and this will just help to thicken our sauce a little bit. We cook that for a minute or two. If you don't cook it for a minute or two, you're going to get an uncooked flour taste in your sauce, and it's really hard to get rid of. So once I give this a chance to cook, I'm going to add some of the Worcestershire. Worcestershire has a lot of ingredients in it. There are about 17 different herbs and spices. It also has a little bit of anchovy, which gives it that salt. But it's a really nice ingredient to use for sort of that fifth taste, that umami. The parsley, some red wine, and then the last thing I'll add to this will be my stock. And then I will just add stock to achieve my desired consistency. So you really can control this recipe and vary this recipe in absolutely any way that you want to. Okay, so we're giving that a chance to cook. And slowly add the stock. Keep this pan nice and hot so that the stock goes in very smoothly. Okay. And now I'm going to let this cook for a minute or two and see what kind of a consistency I have. Okay, and by using that Wonder flour, I really don't have to worry about lumps in this. So that's a really great item to use when you're trying to get a really nice smooth sauce. Okay, so we're going to let that cook. In the meantime, let's take a look at our marinara sauce. And it looks great. I'm going to give this a taste. Make sure my seasonings are right, and if they aren't at this point, I could adjust my seasonings. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to add the meatballs. Turn that down just a bit. All right, I'm going to add most of my meatballs to this sauce. Okay, now this is also one of those dishes that you make extra and you freeze. And we'll save some of those meatballs for the mushroom sauce. anything that you make like this that you're putting in a sauce to cook that will keep the dish moist is a great thing to freeze. And when you're reheating something that you've frozen, one of the best things you can do is defrost it before you reheat it. It will reheat so much better if you've allowed it to defrost. A couple of ways you can do that. Take it out of the freezer the night before, put it in the refrigerator, or the next morning, and just let it sit in the refrigerator. Even if it doesn't completely defrost, it will defrost enough that it will reheat a lot better than if you tried to reheat it from a completely frozen state. Okay, so mix this in. And now that I have my meatballs and my sauces, I'm gonna go back and check on those turkey meatloaves. My meatloaves need just another couple of minutes. So in the meantime, I'm gonna prepare a little bit of an arugula salad to go with them. So I need my tongs, a little bit of arugula, and this is just one portion. I have some fresh squeezed lemon juice from earlier. It's the juice of 1 lemon, a pinch of salt, a few grindings of freshly cracked black pepper, and the finishing touch on this is just some really good quality extra virgin olive oil. So let me grab this just once around lightly because there's not too much lemon in there. And we're going to toss this, and that's it. Lemon and olive oil are a wonderful quick salad dressing for any greens, but particularly on arugula because arugula has that nice peppery flavor. Okay, so that's it. Let's get some plates because we're ready to plate just about everything as soon as those turkey meatloaves are done. Okay, I'm gonna put my arugula salad right on this plate while it's waiting for the turkey meatloaf. Okay, and that looks so fresh and so bright. So we're done with this. Let's go check on those turkey meatloaves one more time. Okay, so our turkey meatloaves are done. Let's take one of these and put it on the plate with our arugula salad. And that's a great light dinner for one. In the meantime, I'm gonna plate the other dishes. So we have our meatballs with marinara sauce. Red looks so pretty on a white plate. You know, food really looks best on white or black. I prefer white. But a busy plate, even though it might be a beautiful plate all by itself, a busy plate actually takes away from your food. And then we have our meatballs with our mushroom sauce. And this would also be lovely served with some couscous or some rice. This we could serve with some pasta, or I also enjoy eating that over polenta. So we have one other treat for today's show, a really quick, simple, delicious, healthy dessert. I'm gonna grab some ricotta cheese and some Italian cherries and just a pretty glass to serve them in. And this goes together very quickly. It's really yummy and delicious. So if you can get your hands on fresh ricotta cheese, it's a wonderful treat. If not, get whatever you can and just pop that into a pretty glass. A long-stemmed wine glass would work. This is a brandy glass. Okay. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some of these beautiful cherries that I got from Italy and spoon those over the ricotta. So I have a low-fat, rich, creamy, sweet dessert that I don't have to feel guilty about. So what I would like to do if I were having a dinner party and I wanted to serve this dessert, I would make it early in the day, let these sit in the refrigerator, all the flavors will blend, they'll be even more delicious than it is just now. It's also wonderful if you want to serve this with some great biscotti or some amaretti cookies. So buon appetito. So let's just go back over all these terrific dishes. So we have our turkey meatloaf with sun-dried tomatoes, fresh basil, fresh parsley, pinoli nuts, Parmesan cheese, arugula salad with lemon juice and olive oil, salt and pepper. We have our beef meatballs that we made with eggs, breadcrumbs, herbs, And then these are in a really wonderful mushroom sauce. We have our beef meatballs in our marinara sauce. It's a really quick, easy marinara, just some garlic, some olive oil, and some fresh basil. And then we have a really delicious, very simple but very healthy dessert. Fresh ricotta cheese and amaretti cherries from Italy. I'm Barbara Seelig-Brown. I want to thank you so much for joining me today on Stress-Free Cooking. I'll look forward to seeing you again soon. You can also visit my Facebook page, Stress-Free Cooking with host Barbara Seelig-Brown, if you have any questions.
Funding for Stress-Free Cooking is brought to you by Cutco. Cutco has been making high-quality products in Olean, New York since 1949. Cutco's straight-edge blades are durable, flexible, and hold a razor-sharp edge. And by Melissa's. Established in 1984, Melissa's World Variety Produce is currently the largest distributor of specialty produce in the United States. You could depend on Melissa's for delivering great quality products in fruits and vegetables.
Enjoy Barbara Seelig-Brown's cookbook as she shows you how to make stress-free dishes in the comfort of your own home. Offer made by Stress-Free Cooking for $19.95.